What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today? Oh, I apologize about yesterday. We'll talk about that in the stream this weekend. I'm gonna do a stream this weekend. We'll talk about it, go into detail about what happened, because it was definitely a what happened moment. Listen, I gave up and I decided to just do a fresh video because I had it done on the screen on the computer, but I'm just gonna do it this way. So today's episode is gonna be on the believer. Okay, so we're going back to the different personalities. There's 7 currently. That might change. There might be more in the future, but for now there's 7. We already talked about the sulker. We already talked about the rat. This time we're going to talk about the believer. Now, the believer is somebody who is a tool. They're not a person per se. They are a person, but the corporation uses them as a tool, and they allow it. That's a feature you have to understand. It's a choice, okay? The believer is somebody who either didn't wake up and they still, quote, believe in the mission, right? Whatever the company's mission is, they, quote, believe in the system, whatever the system may be, if it's advancement, if it's, getting a raise or promotion, they're still asleep. You know what I mean? They still taking the office blue pill. They're still in the slumber. The dream is still alive. In order to be a believer, you have to have a dream. And their dream is to move on up, usually. That's not always the case. It could be something else. Another feature about them is, and again, I didn't say it's a bug. They're not bugs. These are features, right? You don't have a believer if they don't believe in this stuff. If they don't have these features, they're not a believer. They're something else. Maybe they're a mixture of different people, but they're not a believer if they don't have, a part of them could be a believer. Remember, this is all pieces of a puzzle, right? So no one is a full-on, 100% just a believer. They're a believer in something else, maybe they're a believer in a rat, whatever. My point is, another feature they have is they are bought into pleasing people. They people please, whether they want to or not. That's debatable, but they are people pleasers. They tend to be used there as a doormat, right? They're used as a tool. They're a doormat. They get walked over. They get abused. Let me see what else. There's a bunch of stuff. I mean, you name it. Like all the bad stuff that usually happens in an office that builds up resentment usually happens to the believer. And the thing is, a lot of people who are other things, they tend to start as a believer, especially if they have skills. If they are skilled and they know what they're doing, right? And they're pretty smart. Usually they start as a believer. If they are a joker, they probably started out as a believer. If they were a merc, they probably started out as a believer. Sages are a little different. Sages always have a bit of, there's a bit of selfishness. They know that the system ain't quite right. You have to have that in you to be a leader, an effective leader, not become a rat or a snake. Which we'll talk about that at some point in the future. I'm kind of slowly, I don't want to do the snake yet. I want to kind of give you the overview of everybody else before I do the snake, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how I feel about it. Because, that can muddy the waters. I want you to understand what the field looks like before you see the snake, because the snake is resourceful. All right. That's what makes them the snake. They use people as a resource. They turn everybody into tools. That's a part of why they're so toxic. So going back to the believer is definitely the number one tool in the snake handbox. But you get what I'm saying. They are not. They are almost used by everybody. Almost, not always, but for the most part, every corporation in every position, they have some portion of the believer in there. Now, the problem is when a believer becomes they usually, it's not their fault normally that they are, that they are innately that way, right? That's kind of like, they don't know that they're doing that. They don't understand that they're participating in their own, unhappiness, because that's a part of being a believer is, they're on the face happy, but they're very unhappy. A sulker normally comes from becoming a believer and then becoming completely disillusioned, completely being black-pilled, waking up and it's like a desolate landscape and they realize they've trapped themselves, right? And so it's really sad. It's one of the saddest people, in my opinion. Like, even the sulker is nothing compared to the believer as far as like the the depression that you kind of get exposed to, because they're just a bubble waiting to burst. Now, a lot of bad things can happen when that bubble bursts, but you have to kind of keep in mind that, again, it is a choice to sustain that lifestyle, to sustain that viewpoint. They have to kind of wake up. And unfortunately, a lot of them never do wake up. But when they do wake up, they will change. Make no mistake. A lot of them, when they do wake up, they become a different personality. And you can kind of tell based on how they see themselves, how they see the world, how they communicate. After that, it's got a tinge of bitterness. Or maybe they become a joker and they actually like start that process of getting better. That's usually where they go, is from believer to joker or merc. It's kind of like an escape route, right? They kind of disconnect so hard that they have to, have that solidified separation between, emotional investment, energy investment, mental investment, you name it, right? A lot of people become that way. They have to cut out everybody first and then they'll start the healing process, which is fine. I think that's fine. I think the worst one is if they become leader. Like I said before, if they become a leader, they usually become a rat or a snake because they wake up and they realize, oh, I was used, so let me be a user too. And so that's when you have a real problem. The rat is a little bit more nuanced than the snake as far as this position is concerned. A believer, when they become a snake, they're just full and become part of the problem. They've merged with the corporation as a Borg. They are a part 100% of the evil that is that corporate nature, right? That toxicity. They become it's like they passed on the cycle of abuse, right? And so unfortunately, that's a lot of people. So you have to remember, most people who are like snakes, they were either a believer or a rat, and they devolved. I call it devolving because it's toxic. It's a toxic evolution. And I think the biggest issue is a lot of people just accept that that's okay. And that's part of the corporate lifestyle, which it just shouldn't be. And that's why you have to kind of rug your job at that point. When you realize you're in that cycle, especially if that's somebody who is either your supervisor or some other person in power, maybe there's somebody you rely on your team that is like a gatekeeper of some sort, or they're like holding the keys to the mission being successful, whatever the job is. Maybe it's a contract job, whatever. You got to leave. That's when you got to rug. I need to make a video called Indicators of When You Need to Rug Your Job, because there's some key indicators that you just can't avoid. That's just unavoidable, in my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion about what time is a good time to rug. But that's pretty much one of those big ones for me, in my personal opinion. And then also, finally, last but not least, when they become a rat, when the believer becomes a leader and they become a rat, that's when they're like afraid still. They're still afraid, and so they kind of appeal to their people below them on the totem pole with a lot of, oh, we could lose our jobs. You could lose your job. It could be bad. Blah blah blah. That's when you see the manipulation on the rat side of things. And they push you and they put more shit on your table. They put more things on your table. Now, they may not have they may quote unquote mean well, but they're still a rat. There's somebody who's putting more work onto your plate when you're not getting paid for that extra work, right? You're literally getting rugged, or not literally, but you're basically getting rugged straight out, putting more work into something that you're not getting paid for. Because these corporations, again, their mission is to get more out of you. I don't even care what it is. It could be, you could be working for a school. You could be working for the government. You could work for a library. I don't care what it is. You could be working for a university. It doesn't matter. A hospital. Their job is one thing: to get more out of you for what they have already paid you. That's it. And your job is to get more out of the job, or at least sustain what you currently have, and renegotiate in the future for a higher pay. Or if not, take the skills with you to another place, a competitor who will. And that's pretty much life. A believer will never do that. that's something that they won't do. They're stuck there. Don't once you've identified somebody as a believer or a sulker or a rat or a snake, those are the 4 toxic mindsets you should just be on the lookout for, and just be ready to move on. Be okay with not connecting with that person, not having closure, nothing like that. And that's about it. Let me know what you think. Appreciate your time. Have a great day. Peace. Do 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 do.